Daniel Peterson.
Good day, everybody. Today we are with great bass player or legendary bass player, Sammy Weber. Sammy, can you tell us what your first musical experience was?
Good afternoon, people, and Daniel, thanks for having me on here. My first musical experience was really not an experience, it was just everyday life, you know. And those days of myself growing up, there was no TV.
Yeah.
We didn't have TV at the time because TV in South Africa just came around about 1974 or there. And before that, we used to listen to the radio all the time. And my favorite music growing up was just the latest top 20 stuff or the top 10 stuff. There wasn't top 30s or top 40s, only top 10, 20 and 10. And the music of the day was, I was always captured by the music, just the music of the day, you know. And I remember when I was young, when I was about 4 or 5 years old, we had a little, my father died when I was about 1.5 years old. So he left a little guitar for me, a small guitar. And I used to hide it on the wardrobe, you know. And I used to climb up the wardrobe to get my guitar there. And one day I climbed up there and then the thing fell down and broke. And I was sad for about a week. But that is my first remembrance of musical stuff, you know. And then after that, I don't know why it was, but I just got hooked on the radio stuff. Every song that came up. And that, as I remember at that time, the Beatles were very prominent. And I knew every Beatles song. But because I come from a poor family, my mother, and we were 5 children, my mother couldn't afford to buy me any instrument. So I remember just hitting pots and pans and boxes and things like that as drums, you know. But that was my musical experience. As songs came on, I used to sing with it. I used to play dry air guitar and stuff like that. And the strange thing that nobody really wants to believe is I only got my hands on a guitar when I was in matric. I was about 17 or 18 years old when I got my hands on a guitar. And then I started learning how to play guitar. But that was my first musical experience. So all of my childhood, my teen years and stuff, nothing. No musical instrument to speak of, you know. But my first introduction to a guitar was when I was in matric.
So from this, I can only see that you're never too old to start playing an instrument.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Never too old.
Okay, Sammy, so can you tell us why you chose the bass guitar? What stood out for you from the lower notes?
Oh, well, I didn't start on a bass guitar, Daniel, because I was a normal guitar player. I learned to play the normal guitar at 18. I then played the normal guitar in the band, in the garage band that I started with. I played the normal 6-string guitar for 2 years. And then our bass player decided to leave. And then the guy said, "Hey, Sammy, you're always messing around with all the instruments. Please take the bass because we've got a gig coming up, you know." And then at first I was scared. I thought, no. I was very comfortable on my 6-string guitar. And nobody likes change.
Yeah.
So they says, "Hey, man, just play, just try it out." And I said, "Okay, give me the guitar. But in the meantime, look for a bass." I still told the guys, look for a bass guitar so I can go back on my 6-string. And that's when I started with a bass guitar. But I knew songs and things like that already because the difference between the guitar and the bass is that on the bass you only play one note. And I said, it can't be that difficult. But I still told the guys, just look for a bass guitar wrist while I sort of help out on the bass. And then, but after about 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, they were getting so comfortable with me on the bass.
Okay.
And then I said, "Guys, how far are you getting? How far are you with finding a bass player?" They said, "Well, we stopped looking long ago." "You're doing such a fine
So the
job."
joke was on you.
Yeah, they said "You're doing a fine job there, and we're gonna leave you there." And then I said, obviously that time we were all poor. We didn't have our own instrument. The old man, the manager of the band, he had all the instruments. So I told him, "Listen," we used to call him Pops. Pops, then give me the bass guitar to take home so I can really sort of, make myself really comfortable and tennis on the bass guitar. And then he did. And then 6 months later, that was it for me. Eh? Nobody was going to get me back on guitar again.
Wow.
I just fell in love with the instrument. I just fell in love with the bass guitar. So that was how my bass journey started.
That is incredible. That's incredible. So tell me, do you have any musical education while learning to play the guitar? Did you go for lessons at somebody's house or to any school or whatever during that 2 years after matric or during matric when you started playing the guitar? Did you get any lessons?
Well, you see, at that time in those years, you must remember those were the apartheid years, and there were no such luxuries put in our schools for kids with talent and stuff like that. You just go to school, learn your 6 subjects or your 7 subjects that you're going to learn for your grade or your standard that you were in. And that was it. No extramural stuff, unless you were one of the more affluent people of color. But with us, I mean, we grew up extremely poor because my mother was a single parent, and 5 children, and my mother had no education. She was a domestic worker, so she couldn't afford, and even if she wanted to, she couldn't, Anyway, so I was self-taught. In actual fact, you know how it is in our locations and stuff. Gangsterism is the order of the day. But I also joined the gang. But my reason for joining the gang was because from school, I used to pass this group of Owens almost every afternoon. And they would be there, like 6 and 7 or 7 of them. And one would have a guitar. And they would play all the latest stuff, man. And I was so intrigued by this. And then I sort of hooked up there. And then I asked the guy, he was the leader of the gang nogal. I said, please teach me guitar, man. This is so beautiful every afternoon. And that's where my education came from.
So getting lessons, you had to
join a street gang.
Okay, interesting. So kids out there, don't join gangs.
So and that is how I learned, and obviously from there it went, And by the time, after my 11th month with the gang, I thought to myself, okay, Sammy, you've got enough up here now on the guitar. Okay. And then I told him, listen, man, I don't want to be in the gang anymore. And you know how difficult it is to get out once you're in, Yeah. But I just explained things to them. But luckily, the band leader, he liked me a lot, So, and that is my musical education. He taught me some chords, and then I took myself from there. And then just listening to the radio, and then tapes came out, and then I got some tapes from bass players especially, and I just learned from there. I taught myself, like Level 42 was one of the bands. Oh man, that guy on that bass guitar, he's just phenomenal, And that's how I learned, because at that time, in South Africa, in Cape Town, or maybe even the rest of the world, there wasn't a lot of slapping going on. And when I heard this, I thought, no. I need to get to know what this man is doing. And
sorry, Sammy, can you show us? Because you are like crazy on slapping. And
do you want it slowed down, or do you just want a piece?
You can do whatever.
So if I have to emulate Level 42, maybe.
amazing. That is amazing.
And
That is amazing.
just to show you maybe one of the techniques that I use is like if I start it slow, it will sound like this.
That's the triplets, right?
Yeah, that is the triplets.
Wow.
And there's a lot of triplets involved. When you say like this is now another triplet. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'll go practice when I get home. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I know you've recorded like 2 albums of your own. Can you tell us about that and also the other artists that you've worked for? Also, I know for a fact that you've been playing with the band VJR, Virtual Jazz Reality. Can you tell us about how that came to be and your albums as well? And also the other artists that you've worked with, please.
Yeah. Okay, there's quite a few artists that I've worked with, which I can't even remember. But the main ones is with VJR. VJR was a band. It was a VJR come from an 8-piece band. We were a Galaxy band and played in the Galaxy. The band was in 1993. They booked their bands for the whole year. And then the end of the year, the Galaxy will get like guest bands like Walk This Way and Dr. Victor and Rasta Rebels and so forth and so forth, you know. But the whole year, it's the one band until about November, and then they do. And I was in that band. The band was called Inside Out, and that was an 8-piece band. Now, what most people don't know was like West End at that time was situated in Cape Town. And the Patel brothers, which own the Galaxy and West End now, they had the lease of this building in Cape Town, and that's where the first West End was. But it was mainly a jazz thingy. So then one day, the brothers came to us and they spoke to Ian Smith actually, and they said, "Ian, don't you want to form like a smaller band, which we want to use on a Sunday night at our venue West End in Cape Town?" And then Ian says, "Man, I'll just cut this band in the middle, take four guys from here, and then we can start there, you know." And then myself, Andrew Ford, which was our keyboard player, Ian Smith, and our then drummer was Kevin Gibson. Now Kevin Gibson is I think he's still the drum lecturer at UCT. Anyway, the 4 of us started at West End in Cape Town, but we didn't have a name or anything like that. But now the history is that Kevin Gibson was also the drummer for Johnny Clegg.
Okay.
So whenever Johnny Clegg went touring, Kevin Gibson would leave with him overseas and stuff. And then he said, "What I will do is I will put my top student in with you guys while I'm gone."
Yeah.
And his top student was Frank Paco.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so that's how that came. And then at some stage, Kevin said, "Hey, man, guys, I think I'm messing you guys around a little bit here, because sometimes Johnny Clegg has got gigs in Johannesburg, and then Kevin Gibson has got to fly to Johannesburg and stuff." He says, "I think I'm messing you guys around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull myself from the band. I'm going to let Frank Paco be your drummer, and whenever he needs a replacement for some reason or other, I will stand in for him."
Okay.
And that's how Frank Paco became our drummer. So then it was myself, Andrew Ford, Ian Smith, and Frank Paco.
Wow.
That was the formation of VJR, yeah. And then we just played a couple of gigs mostly in Cape Town. And then about a year after we were playing, then we only decided to come up with the name VJR, yeah. And that has been 27 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, yes, and the albums. And since that time, we have cut 2 albums, or VJR under the name VJR. The first one is just self-titled VJR, the album. And the second album is Space and Consequence.
Tell me, sorry, Sammy, is there a platform where one can get these albums? Are they still available? Or
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, the end, I normally, I'm going to have to ask Ian Smith to just find out about that a little bit and see what we can be done, because there's a lot of people that still ask for, So, but also people can hear compositions from everybody on the CDs, except Ian Smith. Yeah, Ian Smith wasn't a prolific writer, but myself, Andrew, and Frank, we sort of composed the material for the albums.
Okay. And then your albums, can you tell us about that?
Oh yes, and then around about 2003, yeah, I've been composing for quite a while, since 2000 or something, and I just decided, hey man, I want something out there, Sammy Weber, just to leave a legacy for when I'm not there anymore, and I wanted something under my own name, and no cover versions on there. It's all original music, and that's when I decided to start with my recording of my first CD. There's 13 tracks on there. And then I booked Andrew Ford's studio, which is a prominent studio here in South Africa, actually. And he does things for the rest of Africa, but mostly jingles, TV jingles, radio jingles and stuff, and even the rest of the world as well. And then I booked his studio, and I laid down my album there, and in 2003, I released that one. And that one is called Happy to Be ... So that was the first album. The second album that I did, also 13 tracks on there. Also all Sammy Weber compositions, because I don't really like recording other people's stuff. And the second album I did right here.
Okay.
Yeah,
in your own studio.
Everything, yeah, and I just got guest musicians in and stuff, And that one is called I Never Thought, and it did quite well. I'm sold out at the moment of the one. I just discovered that a friend of mine has got about 120 copies of my first CD at his place, which I'm going to fetch next week. So I've got now copies of the first CD again, but I'm sold out of the copies of the second CD.
So if people want to get copies of the album, they can hook you up on Facebook or...
Yeah, they can contact me, and then I will sort of give them a signed copy of the first CD.
And a picture.
We'll see about that.
Sammy, can you tell us what gear you are using? I know you used to use Ibanez bass guitars, but I see you've been doing Warwick now, playing Warwick for the last, I don't know, over 10 years or...
About 2008, I think.
Can you tell us about that, please?
Yeah. I was a Ibanez man through and through, because I had a Ibanez before that one that you always saw me with on the waterfront. I had an Ibanez 4-string musician bass guitar, and that was a lovely guitar, man. But I gave that to my brother on his, I don't know what birthday, because he was then starting to play bass in church. Okay. So I gave that to him, and I also gave him a Warwick amp, a little combo amp like mine, for his birthday, and that was that. He still has it, I think, yes. Then I switched to that one that you saw, which was a 5-string. And that was a killer guitar. And then one day I walked into the music shop in Cape Town. What was it called?
Marshall Music.
Marshall Music, in Cape Town. And then I saw this on the wall there. And then the owner came out, and the owner's also a bass player, he's a white guy. He's also a bass player. And I said, hey man, Sammy Weber in my shop. I mean, I'm a fan, And then I said, oh, okay, thank you very much. And we started speaking, and I saw this. He says, man, I just came from Stuttgart in Germany, in Germany, and I brought that back with me because that just talked to me when I. And I said, oh, can I try it out? He says, hey, with pleasure. So we took it off and we plugged it in. So I tried it out. Yes, and this bass spoke to me, man. Wow. And then he says, do you like it? I said, oh, for sure. It was about 30,000, this one. And I said, oh, what a question. I love it, man. He says, would like to have it. I said,
that's a question.
I says, well, it's up in the air. He says, okay, I'll give it to you for 50% discount. Wow. And I said, you're kidding me. And he said, if you pay me in 3 months, there will be no interest charges or anything. I'll take it as cash. And then I gave him 5,000 for 3 months, and that was it. It was since then I've been with the
That's incredible. That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, and my other equipment, I love this. I've had this Marshall amp for about 15 years now. I mean,
The Fender.
yeah, the Fender, sorry. And it is just, this is reliability itself. Everywhere I take this amp, it gives me the sound, it gives me what I want, you know. And I've also got my piano is standing on my SWR.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, I've got SWR, but that is a little top, and those are the speakers of my SWR.
Okay.
So I vary between the two when I feel like, you know. So, but those are and no pedals or anything. I've got a set of pedals that I just recently got from Wesley Ruston. If you're going to be watching this, thank you very much for those pedals, man. I just got it from Wesley Ruston. He didn't want to take any payment for it. He just said, "Hey, Sammy."
Wesley's an incredible guy.
He's a fantastic guy. He's great. Yeah. So that is basically what I use at the moment.
Do you have any advice for young up-and-coming bass players and musicians out there, please?
The first thing that I would like to say to all the youngsters and the players from now is that you have got all the tools at your feet. You've got the internet, there's DVDs and there's things that you can buy, and you don't even have to buy it anymore. You just log on to the internet, go into somebody that you like, and there it is, you know. So make use of that, because in my days we had to work hard, man. I had to sit hours with my guitar with a rewind tape and forward tape, and you know. And but the boys of today and the girls also, they've got it easy. So make use of that technology is there to help you, and not to be abused and things like that. But also, you see, wherever in the world, I've been about on 4 continents on this earth now, and quite a couple of countries, you know. And wherever I go, obviously, one sort of compares when there's playing or things like that. You think, hey, who does this remind me of, and who does this remind? And there's so many places that I've been where nobody comes close to. I'm not even talking about South Africa, but I'm talking about Western Cape players. This Western Cape is fraught with talent. I tell you, worldwide, there's so much talent here. But the only thing, and this is especially for the youngsters, the only thing is there's also a lot, like 70 or 75% ego here in the Western Cape, just because they're so good. Or people tell them, 1 or 2 or 3 people tell them, hey man, you're good, you played fantastic and stuff, and then their head swells up and you can't get out of the door, you know. So I'd like to warn the boys against that, because your ego or your attitude is going to get in the way of your excellence. You know, people, when you give them attitude and, hey man, I don't need to rehearse, or I'm late for rehearsals, or I drink on gigs and stuff like that, and people take note of that. And most people, 90% of the people, will rather play with a mediocre, reliable player than a fantastic, unreliable player. So please, boys, when you do the whole thing, your attitude and your ego must just stay out of the way. It must just stay out of. Be as humble as you can, and you will always be in work. And that is always my advice to the youngsters, you know. That is always my advice.
Wow, Sammy, thank you so much for that invaluable information there and the advice. Thank you so much for making time for me, and Godspeed on your journey, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, Daniel. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming, and thanks for choosing me to do this, man.
Thank you so much for liking and sharing this video with your family and friends. Please follow From the Cape with Bass on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you so much. God bless you.